How's it going? So the Switch 2 has officially been unveiled after 47 years of rumors. It's releasing this year, probably towards the end, and people are obviously excited. I will probably get this console a short while after the launch depending on my financial situation, but there's a few things I'm hoping will be present on the Switch, whether it's at launch or a short while after the launch. I think there's a few things Nintendo cannot get away with this time around. If they want to reign supreme over Sony and Microsoft, they better have the following. So with Nintendo Switch Online at the moment, you have access to classic games from Nintendo's older consoles such as the NES, SNES, Nintendo 64, Game Boy, and Game Boy Advance. It's been a very slow rollout and they cannot do this shit again. Now hopefully Nintendo have functioning brains and realize that all of these retro consoles should be available at launch, but you can never really trust them with stuff like this. It would be classic Nintendo if they only began with the NES games before slowly rolling out the other consoles. They've been doing that since the Wii's Virtual Console. It would be so inconvenient having to swap between both Switch consoles if I happen to be in the mood to play Mario Kart 64. Now, if Nintendo do have this planned, which they should, I think the next step is obviously the GameCube library finally being accessible on a modern console. Throughout the Switch's entire life cycle, people were begging for GameCube games. And also throughout its life cycle, you haven't subscribed to my channel yet. I know Nintendo have been porting and remastering some of their games like Pikmin, Metroid Prime and Super Mario Sunshine, but it wouldn't hurt to have them available in their original state. And some Nintendo fans would burn down an orphanage just to have access to Double Dash and Melee on the Switch too. And after the GameCube, I think they need to bring the DS's library over as well. It'll be interesting to see how they emulate those games, but again, people would burn down 2 orphanages just to play some of these. I don't know if they should bother with the Wii when they're happy with remastering Mario Galaxy and Donkey Kong Country Returns, but the GameCube and DS libraries are needed either at launch or sometime after. Oh, and also, they need to bring the older Pokemon games in. I am not playing this buggy piece of dog shit. Give me the actual good ones. So we got to see the new Joy-Cons in the Switch 2's reveal. They're bigger, they snap onto the console, and they will likely have better technology built in. But when I say better Joy-Cons, I'm simply talking about having no stick drift. I think it's inevitable some people will get it, but please make it less of a common occurrence. I've burned through so many of these because they keep getting stick drift. And Joy-Cons are not cheap, they cost about the same amount as a DualSense, and I do not understand why. These feel like light, cheap pieces of plastic, while the DualSense has a heavy premium feel to it. I don't mean to glaze PlayStation, like the DualSense is not a perfect controller, but I hope the new Joy-Cons are built to last and I can go at least a year without having any problems. An obvious one. Nintendo has never been the best when it comes to online, but I think a lot of people gave them the benefit of the doubt because their online was free while Xbox and PlayStation were charging money for it. But now we actually have to pay, and with this money you'd think Nintendo would improve their servers, and it still feels like I'm playing on the Wii servers. For me, the online was fine on a game like Mario Kart, but there have been times where Smash Ultimate was unplayable online. It makes the EA and Activision servers look like heaven in comparison. Now at least you're given features like the retro console games with online, but Nintendo needs to invest in some proper servers and give people the smooth experience they deserve when they want to play the next Mario Kart or Smash Brothers. Otherwise, what is the point in handing over your money for something that doesn't even work? The Switch had a fairly weak lineup of launch titles. Breath of the Wild wasn't even an exclusive game. Luckily nobody owned a Wii U, but a lot of people own a Switch, and they're not going to move over for Just Dance. I know it's not as easy to have multiple games ready at launch nowadays, especially with longer development times and higher costs, but Nintendo needs to do something. I think Mario is the obvious suggestion. A new 3D platformer would definitely convince a lot of Switch owners. Even if it's the new Pokemon Legends game or Metroid Prime 4, it will give people a reason to want the Switch 2 at launch. The console itself isn't very innovative, so the games are gonna have to do the talking. If I see 1-2 Switch Part 2 at launch, I am not buying this console. I doubt the Switch 2 will be on the PS5 and Xbox Series X's levels of power, so it's not going to be an easy feat, but third-party support is definitely a need for the Switch 2. We did see some ports on the Switch like The Witcher 3, but it wasn't exactly a fun way to play the game. I'd really want Nintendo to push for these developers to either make a well-optimized port or even games designed for the Switch 2. Doom Eternal being playable on the Switch was unreal, and that's what I'd want to see from other games. It's a big ask, but it would help with the competition. We need the themes and the backgrounds for the Switch 2's home screen. For the last 8 or so years, the Switch's background has been so boring and dull. It's just a plain background, and it's mad that Nintendo never came out with a customization update for the Switch. And, you know, Nintendo, this is between me and you, but you can charge money for those themes and backgrounds, and you know, you can make a bit more money. I know you like that money. I know you like that money. Don't tell me you're a humble little company. I know you love the dollar. You love the yen, the euro, the Zimbabwean billion-dollar currency. And that's all I have to say, really. Looking back at this list, it's all stuff people are already asking for anyway, but I thought I'd give my thoughts regardless. I'm hoping Nintendo will confirm this stuff as we get closer to the launch, but you never really know them. We might not get any GameCube support, we might not have a solid launch title, but worst of all, we might not get Kid Icarus on the NES.